Let's start things with some updates from LSU. I'm not going to say this like 6 more times in December. I'll get to the point more quickly as we get closer to LSU and Houston in the Texas Bowl. But I do feel like in this instance, it's important that I'm clear about my personal feelings on things and why I think today was at least a reasonable development. I lost interest in these bowl games when John Trey Kirkland played quarterback for 4 hours in the Texas Bowl, and then the next year LSU went to Florida and played a Purdue team with no coach and no quarterback and no wide receiver and no tight end and Drew Brees on the sideline. Like, LSU's roster in that Texas Bowl after the 2021 season was embarrassing, and what Purdue put out there on the field a year later was embarrassing. And with the transfer portal opening right after the game and the understanding that you don't know if any of the players that are participating in your team's bowl game are going to be there the following year, there's just not a lot to draw from it. If you've got a lopsided matchup like Georgia and Florida State very famously, like the 2 games I just talked about, like it's not competitive on the field. And then if you were trying to say, well, it's kind of a springboard into next year's season, which I don't think I didn't buy it as much as some of the former players, which take their word for it over mine. That's fine with me. But like, I just don't know that losing the Cotton Bowl or winning the Chick-fil-A Bowl or winning the Citrus Bowl at the time or losing the Music City Bowl was really, really impactful come Labor Day the next year. Like, I don't know that I fully bought into that. But there was a sense of like, you had some young guys that were playing that were going to be back, so let's watch those guys go get it. Like, I was interested in Garrett Nussmeier getting that start against Wisconsin a couple years ago in that bowl game. I didn't really care if LSU won or lost the game, but I knew that Garrett Nussmeier was likely to be the quarterback the following season. It was getting his first real start. Like, okay, let's watch him and see how this goes. And he ended up leading a touchdown drive at the end of the game. He played pretty well. LSU won the game, and he became a prolific passer at LSU the next season. And so, like, there was a draw into that bowl game. But, like, big picture, you're going to have to set a significant hook for me to really feel like I'm invested in these bowl games. This is a me thing. I'm not telling you how to feel. Trust me. Like, if you want to go nuts, put on your purple and gold, scream at the television, get drunk, have a watch party, and invest in this one like they're playing Alabama in early November, perfectly fine. That's great. I just can't do it. I got jaded by those 2 bowl games that I watched LSU play in, and then I've watched this kind of play out. So to me, like, when they announced that you're playing Houston in the bowl game, one, I'm bummed out because that's my kid's birthday and I have to leave Shreveport a little bit early, and the postgame show is not going to end until 2 o'clock in the morning. So that wasn't great for me personally. But, like, from the bowl game perspective, I look at it and go, okay, not a lot for me to chew on. But at least today, we got a sense of what roster LSU is bringing to Houston. It's all subject to change. Guys can opt out. Guys can decide they don't want to play. Guys can enter the transfer portal. Like, I'm not 100% certain, but Frank Wilson spoke on the teleconference today for the bowl game and gave us a pretty good outline of what LSU is bringing to the Texas Bowl. Garrett Nussmeier is not going to play. Garrett Nussmeier has been hurt all year. He didn't play in LSU's last 3 games. He's not going to go out there and play in the Texas Bowl. So he's out. If you stick to the offensive side of the ball, Aaron Anderson is not likely to play per Frank Wilson. And if you say not likely at this point on the 9th of December and you've got 18 days to go, that's a pretty grim outlook. Frank Wilson's the guy who constantly on Mondays, like, we're hopeful. We're hopeful this guy's going to play on Saturday. We're hopeful that guy's going to play on Saturday. The guy that would come to the mic on Thursday and usually say, we'll give it a look on game day. For him to say, not likely, for Aaron Anderson this far out, feels like he's probably not going to play either. Braelin Moore, he said there's a chance. And that, to me, indicates that Braelin Moore would like to try to play in this game. I think if he had no interest in playing in the game, that Frank Wilson would have said that, because Garrett Nussmeier's not playing, and there are a couple guys on defense, Whit Weeks and Mansour Lane, who aren't playing in this game. So the fact that he said that Braelin Moore is got a chance, that suggests to me that he may well play in this game. But then you go to the defensive side of the ball, and probably your 2 best players, Whit Weeks and Mansour Lane, not going to play in this game. And then the other name that he mentioned outwardly, and he wasn't really asked about individual players. He kind of went through the entire thing that was in front of him. He was clearly, this is not like revealing any breaking news. It was a video teleconference he was on. But he was literally peeking over to look at the sheet he had to know who was available and who was not. And it's clear that they've had these conversations with these players. So you're not going to have Whit Weeks. You're not going to have Mansour Delane. But and Jack Pyburn is the other one that I was getting to there that sounds like an opt-out. Jack Pyburn came to LSU to play more on third downs, to get a chance to rush the passer, to get a change of scenery in a new program and to chase a national championship. And he's developed. He got to play a lot. They're not going to win a national championship. He may say, hey, it's time for me to go to the NFL. And that's what a lot of players are going to do this time of the year. If you're one of those people that says that's an unacceptable stance, you line up with this team in August, you need to be with them at the end of December, I'm not backing you off that. I'm just telling you that what Pyburn is likely doing here is something that a lot of players across the country are going to be doing at this point. So outside of that, you kind of got what you got. You've got an offensive line that sounds like it's going to participate. You've got wide receiving core outside of Aaron Anderson. It sounds like it's going to participate. Your running back should be out there. At corner, you lose Mansour Delane. That's a big deal. And you've lost Ashton Stamps to the transfer portal, so it's going to be DJ Pickett, PJ Woodland, and then kind of figure it out beyond that. Nobody has to worry about burning a red shirt. So you'll have, if they want to play Javian Toviano, if they want to play Aiden Anding, if they want to kick TaMarcus Cooley down and play Spears back at safety, like they have a lot of options they can play with that nickel role, with that other cornerback role. But your first two will be Pickett and PJ Woodland. It sounds like AJ Halsey and TaMarcus Cooley will play in this game. At linebacker, you won't have Whit Weeks, and it seems like, based on his Instagram post, that West Weeks is not going to play in this game. That I can't confirm based on the Instagram post, but he did say goodbye to LSU. Would have felt like something you'd probably do after the bowl game if you were going to play in the bowl game, but West didn't come up today with Frank Wilson. But you still got Devon Keys, and you still got some of those other guys that you can count on at linebacker. Maybe Zach Weeks comes up and plays a little bit more. Tylen Singleton got a little bit of run this year. So it's not a roster that is going to be crippled. And let's be candid, when you bring in that many players out of the transfer portal and your coach gets fired and your position coaches, especially on the defensive side of the ball, especially on the offensive side of the ball, are on the way out and you're only playing in the Texas Bowl against Houston, it would not have surprised really anybody to see significant opt-outs in this game. And it doesn't sound like that's going to happen. Michael Van Buren will be the quarterback, and you'll go out there and you'll play Houston in the Texas Bowl in a game that doesn't have a lot of consequences, but should feature enough scholarship players to make LSU functional. So this game, while it is the Texas Bowl, it's way below what you were looking for when you started this thing off in August and when you won that game against Clemson. I don't believe this game is going to be an outward joke. So we start there. And I feel like I have to start there. Like, some of these bowl games are jokes. This one doesn't appear to be a joke. It's more in line with what we saw last year with LSU and Baylor. And you saw a couple of teams that, didn't have everybody that they had in the middle of November, but that essentially had their quarterbacks, had their skill position players, fielded a defense, and were ready to go out there and play some football. So from that perspective, I think it could be an interesting football game competitively. Is it going to have massive impact on what LSU does moving into the Lane Kiffin era? I don't think so. Is it a chance for Michael Van Buren to go out there and audition to be the starting quarterback for Lane Kiffin? Maybe. But I feel like LSU is going to be pretty aggressive in the transfer portal for a quarterback. So I think I'm not going to preview this game right now. We're not going to get into that 2 weeks out. We'll do that right before Christmas, so late next week, early the following week. But big picture, zooming out 5,000 feet, 30,000 feet, whatever you want to call it, it should be reasonably attended and competitive between these two teams. And that beats the heck out of some of the stuff we've seen previously. Is it as good as the playoff? Nope. Is it as good as the bowl games were 15 years ago? Nope. Are bowl games on their way out? Probably. You got 10 teams opting out of bowls, including some good ones like Notre Dame that are taking their ball and going home. We'll talk about that at the end of this hour. But it shouldn't be a joke. And so that's where we can start. And, you hope LSU goes out there and wins the game. Pulling for Frank in his final game. He took some other questions today about his future at LSU, said that determination has not been made. He just kind of dismissed the question it feels like that determination probably has been made between he and Lane Kiffin. But Frank did say multiple times today that there's kind of two existing operations going on right now. The LSU staff from 2025 is working on this bowl game. They start workouts today. They start practice on Thursday. And Lane Kiffin and some of his staff are working on the program as a whole. They're working on position coach hirings. They were dealing with that signing class. They're going to study what goes on in the transfer portal. Now, we know that a lot of LSU's future staff is back in Oxford on offense, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show today. But it's a team that's getting ready for the Texas Bowl, and then it's a program that's moving forward in Lane Kiffin, and those are kind of operating independent of one another. And it seems to be that they're coexisting quite nicely at this point. I'm not in there. I can't tell you that for sure. That's just what we're getting from Frank Wilson today, who took questions for about 12 minutes about this Texas Bowl. So for LSU, you're going to be without Garrett Nussmeier, without Mansour Delane, without Whit Weeks, probably without Aaron Anderson, maybe without Braelin Moore. We'll see what happens with Jack Pyburn. We'll see what happens with Ahmad Bro. It sounded like from Frank Wilson today that Bro would likely play. You're going to be without Ashton Stamps and maybe Wallace Foster, Kylan Billiot, Jelani Watkins, some of those guys that have gone in the portal. But you've got, relatively speaking, a sizable portion of your 2025 roster that will travel to Houston and play in this football game. So whatever that's worth, that's what we'll get to coming up later on this month. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.